So the state, we will focus now in the state, in the sovereign powers. This is so we talk about the power in general. These are the 6 traditional sources of the power. You will remember numbers, strength, force, well, the state power here on new. So how many powers we have in the state? Anyone want to answer? How many powers? Do you know? Which one?
Judiciary, yes. Executive, and legislature.
Perfect. This the president, the parliament, and the judges. Anyone think that there could be another power? Normally, when people used to organize the state, they say, well, we have to divide in 3 powers because Montesquieu saw that. Montesquieu was a tourist in the UK, and he realized that there were the division of powers, and he talked about we have to divide. Here also in Europe, we are not on fashion. we have to divide, and because they have the division in 2 powers. He talked about 2 powers, not 3. He talked about the king and the parliament. That was so clear. But at that time, the king has the courts. But he realized that probably it should be also good to divide the kingdom and the other power, the judiciary. So I think that is clear. You know, we have to divide. It's good to divide, not to put the whole power in one place, because there will be no control, and it's so easy to create corruption. But today it's not enough. Can you imagine another power?
In Kenya, we have independent commissions.
Independent commissions to do what?
I think mostly they still have some oversight mandates.
Yeah, mandate. Okay, perfect.
Like for example, I'll give one example. We have the Salaries and Remunerations Commissions that ensures that all these powers do not pass laws that benefit only themselves as far as their remuneration is concerned.
Okay, commissions to control.
Yeah.
To control another powers, and should have a kind of independence from the other powers. Yeah. Perfect. I will say yes, these are 3 powers, but there are many others. There are many others. So
I'm thinking of also civil society.
Yeah. The power of the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, could be also. So there's other kind of power that normally appears in many constitutions. For example, who will represent you as a whole country or the whole state, at least in certain specific business, no? Who represent the state. In the presidential governments is the president. In the parliamentarian government, many times is one minister, one specific minister appointed by some other ministers. In many ways, there are many ways in the world. But this is in kingdoms, many times in constitutional kingdoms or monarchies. Well, is the king, or the constitutional monarchy, the monarch, and that can represent the state to some extent for us, the certain business. Can you see that this is a different power? That is so clear in constitutional monarchies. In constitutional monarchies is many times the king is not the executive, not the legislative or the judicial. It could be part of the executive power, but the role is a little different. Then someone put there beyond something about the force. Yeah, the use of the external force. In the past, it was everything associated, all these powers to the king, to represent the state, to use the force, to command the battle. But today is a little different. Many times it's organized in very different ways in many states. And it's clear that normally it's the one person in presidential governments is the president. But in a parliamentarian regime, there could be many people, not just one. Or the dictatorship in Rome also, no? A new guy that appeared that we put to solve one problem, they will give the whole powers of the use of the force to do whatever they want. Or the internal use of the force. That is also not the same one. No. One is the army and the other is the police. The police to control, to put order, but in the state, into the state, no. And finally, well, we have controls, well, a lot of controls. The ombudsman also, the defensor of the peoples, or this commission to control many others. No, there is a lot of power. No? You can create a lot of entities to control everything and to control the people that controls everything. The control is amazing. No? So, well, you can put many levels or few levels to give many times, to give the same power to this, to control, to the executive, to the legislative, to the judicial. So you can put the same powers in the same people or in different people, depending on the regime. And when you say we have to divide the power, it's not good, a monarchy. Well, many people used to think just in 3 powers, but the division of powers could be a lot of them. How many, and you can put many others, no? How many of them Aristotle talked about? Don't you know? Have you ever read? He talked about not exactly the power, but the notion was there. He talked about magistratures. And he said, well, there are a lot of magistratures, many offices, many charges for specific people. Also to sweep and to clean the parliament was a magistrature. No? The people that work there have one specific appointment. So he talked, well, there could be a lot. In the antique Greece, there were not just 3 powers, there were a lot of them, but more or less as a task to do, one specific purpose. Here, little by little, we are dividing around the world. You can find the same in many constitutions around the world, that the division of the powers is not just in 2, 3, but they will put, in my country, there are 5 or 6, but the 6 will have not the name, no? Executive, legislative, judiciary, electoral, to elect the candidate, the president, everyone, the electoral, the control, to control, and there are many. The ombudsman is there, the defensor of the people, and then the constitutional court will have a lot of power, the most power, but more than the others, absolutely. The constitutional court of my country, but they will not say that this is a power. So the name of power, well, so you have to ask what is a power. I think that with the notion, the definition that we gave, we understand a little better. Any other power? Any other power? Can you imagine any other? So, well, these are the constituted powers. So there should be the constituent power. This is a theory developed 300 years ago by Judicial in France that says, well, one of the things that are constituted, that we are beginning here a new republic, the first republic. The French people used to found the republic once and again, and then the emperor and the empire, and then the monarchy, the second monarchy. So they want to constitute everything again and again and again. So for them, it's so important that they realize that these are powers that are divided in many ways. Many ways can be divided in many ways. But the constituent power should organize everything. They will work well after the constitution. So first is the constitution. We have to approve one constitution to divide everything. That is the most important thing. So who has the constituent power? Well, it depends. What you will say? I don't know. Who has the power to put a new constitution in Kenya? Who you will say? That is a deep question, no?
Yeah, it's a question that is being determined at our highest court. I think that question has been moved to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
One of the arguments was that it is the president. He can have power to amend the constitution. Others argue, no, he does not qualify as a person who has power. That is something that should be done by the common mwananchi. But then again, are we really practical when we are saying it has to be the common mwananchi? Do they really have the ability, authority, and togetherness in themselves?
What do you think?
Well, I think the executive and those in authority can abuse their positions to try and amend the law to favor them. To that extent, they need to be controlled, or it should not be so easy for them. But when we also say that it is a mwananchi-led process, there is no framework. So we need to have a clear framework.
Do you think, Josephine, that everyone in Kenya agrees that we don't want this constitution and we want another, and they vote and they say we want the other? Everyone.
Of course, we can never have a situation where we all agree.
But suppose that case, the president will be able to say, no, that is not valid because it's not according to the constitution, to the Britain constitution.
What I think is lacking a lot in Kenya is just the legal framework of enabling an amendment to that constitution. We don't have a law that regulates how that amendment should be done. Yeah, and that is why we have all these uncertainties.
Here is, and that's why it's so interesting to see the whole of the legal system. It's not just a matter of the written law. It's not, what is rational also, no? The knowledge and reality, remember. And what is according to reality. But if we understand the thing that we understood before, no? That the last power is the power of the people, that they are organizing themselves. Who has the constituent power? At the end of the sovereign power, at the end of the day, is the people. The people, not the president, not the. So these kind of things, 300 years ago, divided the constituent power. That could be the constituent assembly, for example. And there was a development that distinguished the original constituent power and the derived constituent power. But the original, we are organizing from the very beginning to put a new constitution without seeing the previous one, without be binded by the previous one. So there could be also two kinds of original constituent power. The foundation, when you are founding a new state from the very beginning. So, for example, if you are changing the monarchy in the French Revolution to democracy, well, this is a new system that is absolutely contrary. And then the non-fundational. The non-fundational, but more or less in my country, we had more or less 24 constitutions in the history now. But you can see that every change is just a small change. It's not absolutely different. We were always no, a presidential government with, so it's that just small changes. But a foundational is a quite different constitution, and it means that if there is just a small change, more or less the other laws that were approved in the previous years can remain, but in a foundational use of the constituent power to put a new state, no law will remain. More or less that is the idea, with a lot of legal consequences. When Josephine, you were talking about your answer, you were talking about the derivative constituent power. So many times, when you approve one constitution, you put in that constitution some provisions, some articles that says, if you want to change this constitution, you should follow this process. And BMBI and many other things were discussed, what is according to that process or not. Many people will say, no, it's against the constitution. But remember that you have two powers. First, it's much important, the power of the people. And then the other, no? If you, so that was the question. Forget about the constitution that you approved. The approved is approved by the people. But if you ask to the same people to change the constitution and all of them say yes, well, you have another way to change the constitution. Use the original constituent power, not the derivative one. What is the derivative one? That process that is in the same constitution to reform, to derogate, or to replace the constitution. That is a process that is a formal process instituted by the same constitution. Can you see?
I see the difference.
Yeah.
Though it's very difficult in our case now to ignore this derivative process. Yeah. But then again, I'm also alive to the fact that the people have this original power that is with them, is inherent with them, even if there is a derivative process.
Yeah.
So how do you reconcile that?
It's not easy. It's not easy. Because, well, you have to realize, at the end of the day, who has the right to organize themselves? The people. And the people can approve one constitution and another. And most of the times, constitution didn't have a process. In the past, I mean, in the last 200 years, didn't have a process to change. Now, all of them used to have. But what happens if they don't have? That the constitution should last forever? No. No.
I think, like in our case, we went back to the original process to get the current 2010 constitution.
I would say you have the two powers. Okay, both. Yes.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have two questions. The first one is the one I put in the chat. I noticed you didn't answer. I asked the question, where did the expression monopoly of force come from? Someone answered, said, Treaty of Westphalia, but I need a context to understand what happened.
Yeah, I'm not so sure who were the first people that talk about that.
Okay, fine. Then the second one has to do with this issue of constituent power. I would like to get your opinion on a book by Alexander Solzhenitsyn called Matryona's House. I don't know if you are aware of it or you've read it.
I didn't read.
Okay, in this book, he's talking about a simple woman called Matryona in a rural place in Russia, who you can tell she's a village woman. You can tell that in that village, everyone looks up to her. They go to her house. She determines public opinion. I think nowadays you can call her an influencer. What she does, people follow, and they're not aware. It's an unconscious process. I think she's one you can call a virtuous woman. So whenever people talk about the power belongs to the people, my question is, which of the ordinary people are you talking about? Just any mwananchi, any riffraff, anyone who doesn't have virtue? Or are we unconsciously talking about this virtuous person in the village who has a power which is moral that people follow without knowing, and they are the ones who have the power that we have to listen to, not even the president? Yeah, so I think I want to get your opinion on that.
Well, as you, that was why it's so important to distinguish the political community and the state. The state is one political community, but there could be many. In some places, some small communities or big communities that are parts of Kenya will have the rules and the authorities, political authorities and moral authorities. And people used to follow them because they are the elders, they are the wise man, and many other things. No? So once again, and that could be an interesting to develop a little more also the constitutional power. I think that I will answer a little more your question with this example. What happened is one day, one group of people, 10 people, took the power by the force, illegitimate, absolutely illegitimate against the law. But they remained there for 1 year, 10 years, 20 years. The same question that we asked 2 days ago. Should you obey that law? Yes, because if not, there will be more disorders. Obviously, you should try to change everything, huh? But at least that this the content of the law is unjust. But normally, if you cannot change everything, there will be a worse consequence. So what it means that many times people don't use to approve the constitution. There is no referendum, a guy that has the force by violence impose one norm. But the people, after some years, will accept at least implicitly that, and it's better. So there will have a kind of efficacy, or is legitimate, but will have a kind of legal efficacy. Yeah, there are many, we talk about there are many errors in the law that creates law. There are even some unjust laws that creates, but you have to fight against the injustice, obviously, and against the illegalities and against the error. So more or less, and even more, but your case is, I think that is a little different. By tradition, we understand that we have to follow these rules. And once again, in both cases, you can use that power in 2 ways. One, explicitly going to vote for that constitution in one referendum, or implicitly accepting, I will not go against that. So in both cases, it's more or less the same. You can use explicitly or implicitly the constituent power. Okay, I don't Ali, yes. Ali, let me go ahead a little. You can we can talk in the break, because these are not, we need another kind of power that is even more important. Which one? Let me finish Ali that, and we will talk in the break. Can you imagine another power that is even more powerful? So, any one of you? No, wow. The people, the power of the people, yes. Yes. The fourth estate, well, is a part of the people, the whole people, including all of them included. Yes, I will say. I will say that for them, we should apply the deepest notion of sovereign power. Remember that there were Hobbes and Locke and Rousseau. Hobbes will say we should give all our rights, all our powers, or everything to a monster in such a way that it should be so huge with that strength that can kill anyone to put peace. And Locke and Rousseau will say, no, not the whole powers, not the whole powers. And even if we give the whole powers, we have retained the right to take it back. So at the end of the day, the ones that are really sovereign, that can change the constitution and can put limits to the constitutional assembly, that happened in many places, also in my country. There were a referendum to approve if there should be or not a constitutional referendum, and the condition for that constitutional referendum, and so constitutional assembly, and the conditions, you cannot do that, you cannot do that, you should do that. Yes, the whole power is not in the constitutional assembly. Many times the constitutionalists used to say, these have no limits in their power. No, they have limits in their power. A lot of limits. For example, they cannot go against the rights of life of the citizens and the acquired rights and even the agreements with another states. They cannot say, no, today we will not pay the debts of Kenya because we decide. No, the constituent power and also the sovereign power, both of them have their limits. But in any case, it's clear that the sovereign power of the people is even greater and higher than the constituent power. The constituent power could be limited by the conditions that the people put. Conditions that could be explicitly, as in the case of my country, that they approve something, put a new constitution, but not touch that. Or implicit, no? So, don't you know, here in this country, we believe all of them, all of the citizens in this religion. So you cannot put something against that religion. And that's why there are incredible constitutions around the world. In Turkey, there was a rule in the constitution for how to use the hat, the specific hat that they have, because it was a religious issue there. Huh? You understand better why that provision is in that constitution when you understand the culture of that country. So that is the whole power is in the people. The constituent power is limited by the sovereign power. The constituent powers are limited by the constitution. And among the constituted power, they are controlling each other together. Can you imagine any other last power to finalize this?
In the metaphysical order, all power belongs to God.
Yeah, can you explain that a little more?
Yes, because if you're looking at metaphysical conception of man, then we are the creation. We are created by God, and God has given us power to, to dominate the earth. So even our leaders are, from God. That is if we take the metaphysical order.
Yeah, that is interesting. And there is two conceptions from history about how God governs the people. Many people will believe, no, gods are directly asked to be, kings are asked to be by God, and that's why they have the whole power, and they can do whatever they want, but they should respond only before God. But normally that, at least is not a Catholic point of view. I think that most of Christianity will not share with that point of view many times. And other religions are, well, in the Tibet, more or less accepting the same thing. No, we are elected by God, and so on. The traditional understanding of the power of God is a little different. And you can, God is not that necessary in the traditional understanding, because God never will govern directly the human being. I mean, to put a specific reason, that he did only with one peoples, the Jews. With the Jews, he appeared, and I want this, and I want this, but very few times. And without the Jews, normally he never will appear asking for any specific thing. How governing God, using metaphysical terms, is according to the second causes, through the second causes. It means he creates the world, he creates a human being. The social being is social, the coexistence, the nature, the powers, and he gives freedom to human beings. So that is the first cause. And the second cause, no? So human beings, according to their understandings, trying to find what is the best to each one, should govern themselves. God is just the creator that gives you the nature, and you, with your nature, you should organize yourself. So it's not the God of the Old Testament that is saying you should go there and to do that and to do that. Never God appears in that way. Obviously, there are moral things that we can realize that the people of the past used to do that in that way, but it's good to do that, no? The 10 Commandments, but the 10 Commandments are rational also. No, normal people used to read it. You don't have to kill each other. You don't have to lie. So God created reason, so in such a way that you can understand that you can go, and that is a good idea. Can you see the difference of the government with direct government and the government in metaphysical terms through the second causes, or indirect government? I don't know if you can see. Well, that's why you can talk about everything without talking with God, or you can include God as an ultimate cause. So we are on time. I think that we can go to the break right now.